We looked into it, did a bit of research, did 3 or 4 months of my own research, and then found that all levels of sport are marginalised, all levels of sport are financially troubled, if you like. And therefore, how do we build a proposition that serves sport as a wider ecosystem? Sport won't exist in the way that we know it unless we look after it.
You have to understand from the grassroots what it's like at the grassroots.
You know, from a club's perspective, I've got 3 children, so who are all massively into sport, and obviously through playing myself in different sports.
It played a massive part in my development up to the age of 14, 15. But it wasn't just the football, it was the cricket, it was the athletics, it was riding bikes, it was everything to do with sport. It really helped me to realise that perhaps I had a chance to do something in sport that was quite serious.
We have a massive section of our community, and that being sport, who unfortunately have been let down.
You know, when we see these kids stay with us for a long time, you see the characteristics of them, that they're going to be wise about how they live. And maybe the greatest reward is then when you see some adults coming out the other end, solid people that have it together, becoming good husbands, good wives. They're making it where they value the things that they're doing in their community as well.
Kids are playing sport straight away. So if you think kids are your community or will be your community, or whichever way you look at it, that means sport is at the heart of what you do. Kids are out playing football, they're kicking the ball, they're throwing the ball, they want to play tennis when Wimbledon's on, you know. They see some NBA stuff, they want to play basketball, some skateboarding, that's quite cool, let me do some skateboarding. Sport runs through the veins of everybody, essentially, to some level. And if you think about communities, sport is either the thing that brings the community together, and just look at football and how people come to their local teams, they support their local team. Grassroots through to the Premiership, right, through to elite.
The better the facilities and the opportunity that you offer to the kids, the more we've got a chance of building out that wide funnel at the bottom, the greater the opportunity to grow the talent and have the talent popping out the top. And for Britain, that's a fantastic thing. I mean, we are known as a nation that produces fantastic sportsmen and women. We know what it takes to win. We've seen it in cycling, we've seen it in rowing, we've seen it in gymnastics. Just look at some of the football clubs that we have, and onwards and upwards, right? So we want to make sure we keep growing those sports, but when you start restricting it or the financial resources aren't targeting the right way, you then have an impact on grassroots without a shadow of a doubt.
And then you get right to the top of the pyramid, and people say, why is Team GB not performing to the level they could have been, or why are we not won a World Cup at football? Well, it doesn't start at elite sports, it starts right at the grassroots.
This might sound cheesy, but it was an idea of Andrew's that I'm filming everyone basically sitting down and getting ready. So would you mind just standing up and then sitting back down again? Would that be okay?
So Andrew.
I would never suggest it.
It's a nice chair in the sun.
So not me.
I'm Andrew Smith. I'm the CEO and founder of SPORTA.
My name is Paul Fraser. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at SPORTA. I'm a member of the founding team. I'm one of the founders with Andrew Smith.
I'm Victoria Gosling. Currently, I'm on the British Olympic Association board, Chief Exec of GB Snow Sports, Chair of British Surfing, Chair of the Invictus Games in 2027 in Birmingham, and I'm currently a strategic advisor and co-founder of SportaBank.
My background is technology first, and then financial services second, I would say. I started off working on a project with telephone banking with Barclays back in the day, and been in technology ever since I graduated. I'm most known for, if you like, being one of the founders of ClearBank. I founded that, or Nick Ogden was the founder of that, and I was co-founder with him back in 2014, 2015. And ClearBank was the UK's first new clearing bank in 250 years. The first one to be cloud native. Yeah, it was a fab journey to try and take ClearBank on the path it ended up on. SPORTA is all about a financial ecosystem for sports, and everybody to do with sports, right? So if we think about supporters, fans, if I think about sports clubs members, I think about what their dreams and aspirations may look like as kids going forward. And then you've got the actual clubs themselves, and then you've got right at the top, you've got elite performers. I think if you're a sports club like Brentwood Fire with James Potter, financial services is quite hard to access. If you want to borrow any money to invest in infrastructure, it's quite hard to get that. If you're looking for sponsorship, it's always on your own.
There's not a whole load of government funding in a place like Brentwood, so you have to rely on the affluence of the parents around here, because that's always been the way. Parents have had to pretty much fund what we do. What originally was called Living in Victory Basketball, and then we nicknamed it to LIV, and that was a kind of quick name. We're playing LIV basketball, and then over the years that name turned into a playing name, which is Brentwood Fire. And then I guess a kind of movement on from that was to call it Fire Basketball, so we could expand a little bit in different ways, not just have Brentwood as our complete home, which it is, but we might think about more things as we grow and develop, and so Fire Basketball encapsulates everything that we do.
I think they've got a lot on their plate in terms of just making ends meet. If you think about sports clubs, grassroots clubs, they're grossly underserved for financial services, bordering on marginalised. SPORTA's here to help them. We're here to give them access to the right products and services, configured and tailored to their need. We understand how their businesses uniquely work, and that's what we're here to do. If we can generate additional revenue stream for them, as well as make things a little bit more financially efficient, then that's what SPORTA's here to help.
How I think of the exciting proposition for SPORTA is by incentivising people who effectively bank with SPORTA to actually, put money back into their own clubs and communities, because that will help grow the facilities that we've got, or at least maintain them to a decent standard, which will ensure the kids keep coming, or even the adults keep coming, because sport's for everybody, right? So finding a way to do that and grow sports in itself is fantastic. And also, look at the unintended consequences of people being fit and healthy. Effectively, the pressure on the economy is reduced significantly because you've got a healthier economy. They're less reliant on benefits, etc. Crime goes down. So, it's huge. And I would say I've seen it from an elite perspective, I've seen it from a grassroots perspective, I've seen it from a club perspective, and I've seen it from a supplier's perspective.
It's one of those things where if it proves itself to be really beneficial to community clubs, because most community clubs, I think, have a similar spirit to us. They're not really profit-making driven organisations, because they wouldn't be doing what they're doing at the community level. Like once you get to the professional levels, there's a different, and maybe if you're involved in a professional football club with the community Chelsea football team or the community West Ham team, maybe there's financial reward in that. But I think most community clubs are doing it because they just love working with younger players in that environment. And so maybe a bank like SPORTA, which prioritises and sets out that agenda of wanting to really help community clubs, community initiatives. I love stories, so if this has a dual story with it, the bank has helped maybe one of our teams, grow just for whatever reason, the connection with the parents, the connection with possibly sponsorship, that kind of thing growing, maybe that becomes an amazing story in the future, that team wouldn't have done what it did, or that individual wouldn't have done what they did from a community grassroots level without this new initiative.
By the statistics, there's over 100 billion social value through sport in the UK. Well, to actually have a financial institution like SPORTA, actually grabbing that and supporting it and having that part of their mission is incredible. And I'm shocked no one has done it in the past in such a scale and having it part of their heart. So for me, as a little boy who grew up in the council estate, to see a company who would support youth teams and youngsters who were unfortunately underprivileged like me, to those elite players in any sport then why wouldn't you want to support it?
I think what people can forget sometimes is the backbone of these clubs is volunteers. They are not financial experts. They may have some business experience, they may have some relevant experience, but fundamentally they're all volunteers trying to do the best they can, sometimes with quite limited information or quite complex, situations that maybe they've inherited. You need to guide them, you need to listen to them, and I think that's really what we first of all want to do.
You don't actually succeed without the passion, and you don't succeed unless you've got that love for something that you're doing. And you go into many clubs and you will find the most extraordinary people who spend their time volunteering and building what the club becomes. But actually resource is critical, and having, ensuring that the environment that they're in is sustainable is absolutely fundamental. That doesn't come with zero funding. You need money, and you need to find a sustainable revenue stream.
I think, realistically, a lot of clubs are struggling with the funding. Unfortunately, sport, somebody has to pay for sport. Without having good facilities, you're not going to be able to attract kids, and then more kids, bring them in. We have to try and find a way to make sure that we engage kids, keep them off the streets, give them something else to think about, because the easiest thing to do is to stand on a street corner, and then try and work out your hierarchies, by doing things that you shouldn't be doing, instead of engaging in maybe it's boxing that you need to get your aggression out on, maybe it's athletics that you need to do. Without having those outlets, the problem we're going to have is we're going to create more gangs. We're going to create more people who don't get the opportunity to have a dream. For me, it's very important that we can find ways to actually bring kids in and give them those opportunities, whether they're boys, whether they're girls. That social interaction is important for everybody. It gives parents the opportunity to keep an eye on their kids. It gives them the opportunity to feel like they're part of something as well. For me, I will always support those opportunities.
It would have been very easy for us to have an instinct and go, yes, they've been disadvantaged, so we're going to do the following, and that's going to be the solution. I think what's been super helpful is taking time to go out and actually engage with. I think Andrew and I have been on calls with 30 cricket clubs on conference calls, listening to the challenges that they face. And sometimes those challenges aren't difficult ones to resolve, but they just find the banking system so incredibly bureaucratic that it makes their life unnecessarily difficult.
Money used to trickle down from governing bodies, and if you look at certain sports in particular, private equity money and sophisticated investors have come in and they've taken the rights, if you like, to TV broadcasting rights. And that meant the revenues that used to come into the governing bodies are no longer there, and they're not trickling down as much as they were. So the grassroots clubs themselves have to look elsewhere to sustain themselves financially. That means they have a massive dependency on volunteers, a massive dependency on benefactors, a massive dependency on sponsorship. But who's there to actually help them achieve these things? So sports clubs have X amount of income, right? And that's predominantly through membership fees and subs. And then it's topped up by donations and by sponsorship. We want to make it easier for them to get benefactors who are going to donate. We want to make it easier for clubs to find sponsorship. But we want to connect that kind of fundraising and that ethos of the membership to be able to give back to their club in a slightly different way. So by just using our services, paying with our debit card, paying with a credit card, using us for insurance products, that generates an additional revenue stream back to that club. So you're kind of helping them out financially just by making a choice of saying, instead of paying with this coffee with whatever card, I'm choosing SPORTA. Instead of getting my home insured by somebody, I'm using SPORTA to get my home insured. And that actually gives a revenue stream back to those clubs. On top of that, the clubs have fluctuating income. It's very seasonal, it's cyclical. It's unknown. Some of the clubs, when you get slightly higher, they're performance driven. So, if they do well, they're going to get more income. If they don't do so well, they get less income. Financial services don't understand that. Banks don't understand that. Insurance doesn't really understand all the needs that are typically there. And as I said, they get slightly marginalised then, or even in some cases they cannot get access to the products that they need. We understand the nature of their business. So SPORTA is able to provide them with the right level of products, the right level of services, the right level of customer support.
If the club was a SPORTA client and a member is a SPORTA customer, then we can eliminate friction, first of all, because they know each other. We can have a better perspective of how they spend their money and what is valuable to them, what do they prioritise.
And generate additional revenue by connecting their membership, supporters and fans back to their club. Just by banking with SPORTA, if we're able to become a bank in the future, but just by using our products and services, there's a small margin of that is revenue typically associated with us as a business. We donate that back to their sports clubs of choice. They, as an individual, design their account to say, actually, these cashbacks, these roundups, donate that back to a Brentwood Fire, for example. If you look at certain use cases, that can turn them from a sports club that's in the red, it's hemorrhaging money and it's not going to be afloat in a couple of years, to something that's got a nice little income stream that's putting it in the black, and it can now reinvest in sports equipment and what's needed for the kids of tomorrow.
And what we want to try to do is to make those points of friction reduced. So whether that's offsetting costs that don't have to be there because we can do both sides of the transaction, whether that's allowing a customer the choice of where they round up a little bit of expenditure, they have 5 pence on the pound, and maybe they're happy to agree that they will just round up their money. They can donate that directly to the club of their choosing, not to a charity that we choose on their behalf. It makes it very individual and very tailored. And it also makes it very transparent back to them at the end of a year, a month, a week. They can see the benefit that they've had, and what they think might be a very, very small amount of money compounds and it grows and aggregates over time. And then they look back over a year and go, yeah, to a cause that I feel really passionate about, I was able to help my child's football team get new kit or buy new tops, or they can quantify their activity in direct support of their club and their passions. That's pretty special. I think that's unique. There's not many other banking propositions think like that. It's just to the advantage of the individual. It's to the benefit of their community. It's the whole system that mutually supports one another. And I think that's what excites us, and I think that's where we can have the most powerful impact.
I think it's an exciting project because we basically just use a high street bank, to pretty much do everything that we do banking-wise. If parents are actually part of this banking system as well as us being part of it, then I can see an amazing knock-on effect where maybe the return to us could be maximising certain levels of finance that parents are bringing in. Because that's always been the way. Parents have had to pretty much fund what we do. There's not a whole load of government funding in a place like Brentwood, so you have to rely on the affluence of the parents around here. And I think just being connected to something which might hold our organisation with a really good platform. Hopefully it have really good credibility as well, so parents will really trust it. They feel like they're benefiting the club by being part of it as well. So I know whenever I think about giving money away, and if the government gives the money through the gift aiding, you thought, hey, that's a good thing where your money multiplies from someone like gift aid. It might be that this banking opportunity helps parents realise, okay, it could multiply the money through certain ways and fundraising and really helping the club to again be more sustainable in the future.
Now we're on that journey now. It's not an easy journey, it is structured. It will take time. I would anticipate from where we are now, it's going to be at least another 12, maybe even 18 months before we are a fully licensed bank. It's a high bar to achieve.
Yes, I think it's an exciting opportunity, and it doesn't feel like a bank. It feels like something much, much bigger than that.
When you see parents putting that kind of pressure on their children, it can also drive them away from sport. And I've seen that. I've come up alongside people who have had to put up with that kind of pressure. I think it's great for them to learn about competing and that it's all right if you lose. How do I become a winner? Those are the lessons, whether it's in the boardroom, whether it's, on a football pitch. That's what's going to get you to the top level.